For 3 years, a woman lived just 4 streets away from me. She knew my husband. She knew my schedule. She knew details about my life that I never shared with anyone. The part that still destroys me is this. Everyone in the neighborhood knew who she was, except me. What she finally confessed to me was something I never imagined a married woman could survive. Now the story begins. I used to believe that a quiet neighborhood meant a peaceful life, the kind where people waved politely, minded their business, and didn't bother you unless something was wrong. That's how I described my street to everyone: safe, calm, predictable. But the truth is, things can hide in quiet places. Terrible things, secrets, lies, people. And for almost 3 years, something dark was living just a few minutes from my front door. At first, my life with Tom felt ordinary in a comforting way. We'd been married for 6 years. We had routines: breakfast together, work, dinner, a movie, bed. The usual things couples do. Tom wasn't perfect, but he was stable, dependable, and calm. Too calm sometimes. I used to joke that he'd be the same person in a thunderstorm or in a bank robbery. But now that I think about it, maybe that wasn't calmness. Maybe it was practice. The first moment things began to feel strange wasn't dramatic. It was so small I almost forgot about it. I was leaving for work one morning when I saw a woman standing across the street. She was wearing a hoodie even though it was warm outside, and she stared at me like she was trying to memorize my face. I waved awkwardly. She didn't wave back. She just walked away. I didn't think much of it. People act weird sometimes. But the next week I saw her again, standing much closer, this time near the corner of my driveway. When she noticed me, she pretended to be on her phone and walked off quickly. Something about the way she hurried away stuck with me, but I still brushed it off. I wish I hadn't. The next sign came from my neighbors. I'd always gotten along with them, greetings, occasional small talk, nothing deep. But suddenly they started acting odd. Mrs. Webb from next door began avoiding eye contact. Mr. Collins, who loved chatting, suddenly cut conversations shorter than usual. 2 teenage girls down the road stopped giggling and whispering when they saw me, but they stared at me with an expression I couldn't place: pity, fear. I wasn't sure. Again, I convinced myself I was overthinking. But the real shift came one Friday evening when Tom came home unusually late. He walked in with that same calm face he always wore, kissed me on the forehead, and said work ran long. That was normal for him. What wasn't normal was the faint scent on his clothes. Not perfume. Not sweat. Something soft and familiar. Something floral. I leaned closer without realizing it, and he pulled away quickly, like a reflex. I laughed it off, but something in my stomach twisted so hard I almost lost my breath. That smell, I recognized it but couldn't place it. The next morning, everything became more confusing. I went for my usual walk, and as I passed one of the parallel streets behind ours, I saw her again, the same hooded woman. Except this time she wasn't wearing the hoodie. She looked normal, quiet. She had brown hair, a simple dress, and a bag of groceries, like a completely ordinary woman. But the moment she saw me, she froze. Her face went white, and she whispered something so softly I almost didn't hear it. Not yet. Then she hurried into a house I'd never noticed before. I stood there for a long time, unsure what "not yet" meant or why she said it. I walked away feeling as if I had stepped into a story that was being told around me instead of to me. Later that day, I mentioned the woman to Tom. He froze. Only for a second, barely noticeable, but I caught it. Then he smiled and said, "Probably a new neighbor, don't overthink it." I laughed, nodded, and let it go, but something in me began to pay closer attention. A week passed. Then another. Then everything exploded at once. It started when our internet went out unexpectedly. Tom was at work, and I needed to fix a payment issue with the service provider. They asked me to confirm the last 4 digits of the secondary email associated with the account. I blinked. Secondary email. We never added one. But apparently, 3 years ago, my husband had added a second email address to our account. The representative read it out loud. It wasn't mine. It wasn't his. It was a woman's name. Not a username. A full name. First and last. The name hit me like a brick. Because it was the last name written on the mailbox of the house where the strange woman disappeared into. My hands trembled as I wrote it down. Something inside me cracked open. I wasn't imagining things. There was a woman. She was connected to my husband. And not casually. I decided to go back to that street the next morning. I stood outside her house for several minutes. No movement, no sound, no car. I almost gave up until I heard a soft throat clearing behind me. It was Mr. Collins. He looked nervous. Too nervous. He said, "You shouldn't be here." I asked him why. He said, "Because you're not supposed to know yet." My blood ran cold. "What do you know?" I asked. He shook his head. "It's not my place, but you deserve to know." Before he could say more, his wife called him loudly from their doorway and rushed him inside. That night I couldn't sleep. Every sound felt suspicious. Every shadow felt like it was hiding something. At around 1 a.m. I heard Tom's phone vibrate. He always slept like a rock, so he didn't notice. I glanced at the screen. One notification. One name. The same woman. My breath caught in my throat. The message preview said, "She's close to finding out. What do we do?" My world spun. Tom stirred, so I set the phone down and pretended to sleep. But inside I was collapsing. The next morning I acted normal. I made breakfast. I smiled. I packed my bag, and the moment Tom left for work I went back to that woman's house. I knocked 3 times. No response. I knocked again, louder. Then the door opened. She looked exhausted, almost sick with worry. Her eyes were red as if she'd cried for hours. She didn't look like a mistress. She didn't look like someone hiding a romance. She looked like someone hiding a wound. Before I could speak, she whispered, "I didn't want to be the one to tell you." My heart dropped. "Tell me what?" She stepped aside. "Come in." I walked into her small living room. It was neat but sparse, like someone living out of fear instead of comfort. Photos were turned face down on tables. Curtains were pinned shut. She looked around nervously before sitting. She took a deep breath. Then she said words that shattered every assumption I had. "I'm not your husband's lover. I'm his past." I frowned, confused. "What does that mean?" She handed me a folded envelope. Tom's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a confession. A story Tom had never told me. A story he had kept buried for nearly a decade. My fingers trembled as I unfolded the letter, the paper already worn at the edges as if it had been opened many times before. The moment my eyes landed on Tom's handwriting, my heart squeezed painfully inside my chest. The letter began simply, "If you're reading this, it means I failed to protect both of you. Both of you." I read on. Tom wrote about a life he lived long before we met, a relationship he never mentioned, a woman he had planned to marry. Her name was Emily, the same name on the mailbox outside. He described how they were engaged, how everything seemed perfect, until one day she vanished without a trace. No note, no goodbye, just gone. For years, he said, he searched for her, called hospitals, filed reports, checked shelters, reached out to every friend she'd ever known. Nothing. He eventually assumed she left him. The heartbreak, he wrote, nearly destroyed him, but he forced himself to move on. Then he met me. He wrote that I gave him hope again, that I made him believe he deserved happiness. But on the day we got legally married, something unexpected happened. He received a call, a number he didn't recognize, and when he answered, it was Emily. I felt the room tilt. My stomach knotted so tightly I had to grip the armrest to steady myself. She was alive, I whispered. The woman, Emily, nodded quietly. I looked back down at the letter. Tom wrote that when he answered the phone, she was crying. She told him she didn't leave by choice. She left because she feared for her life. Tom didn't explain much, but he mentioned she had been hiding from someone dangerous, an ex, a stalker, someone unstable, someone she feared would kill her and anyone she loved. So she disappeared, totally, completely, no contact, not even with him. Until that one unexpected call years later. But the shocking part wasn't that she reached out. It was what happened next. Tom wrote that after the call, he agreed to meet her one last time because she said she needed help, not love, not a second chance. Safety. She begged him not to tell me. She said if I knew who she was, I might become a target too. And for the first time in the entire letter, Tom wrote something that didn't sound like him at all. I made a choice that day. I chose to protect her, but in doing so, I may have put you in danger without realizing it. A chill ran through me. Emily watched me, her hands twisting nervously. I looked up from the letter, my voice barely steady. Why are you here? Why move close to us? Why stay hidden? She took a shaky breath. Because I didn't know who was watching me. Every time I tried to leave the state, someone followed me, someone who didn't want me alive. I told Tom and he panicked. He said staying close would let him check on me without raising suspicion. He visited when he could, brought me groceries, helped me stay off the grid. The scent on his clothes. The distant look in his eyes. The secrecy. Everything suddenly made sense, but in the worst possible way. I whispered, so he was cheating. She shook her head firmly. No, he always talked about you. He said you were kind, steady, forgiving. He said you saved him from the darkest part of his life. He never wanted to hurt you. Tears filled my eyes before I could stop them. Then why didn't he just tell me? Emily looked down, guilt filling her face. Because the man after me, he didn't stop. He began looking into anyone connected to me, anyone who came near me. Tom thought the more you knew, the more risk you'd be in. My heart thudded painfully, refusing to accept this new reality. And the neighbors, I asked. She swallowed hard. Some of them knew, not the full story, just that I was in danger. Tom asked them quietly not to mention me to you. That explained the pitying looks, the awkward silence, the careful distance. I felt heat rise in my face, anger, betrayal, empathy, confusion, all tangled together. I stood up and paced, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. So what changed? Why now? Why let me find all this out? Emily hesitated, then reached into a drawer and pulled out a thick folder. She placed it gently in front of me. Inside were photos, phone records, maps, printed emails, and every single one pointed to the same horrifying truth. The man who once tried to hurt her was in our city again. And worse, she believed he had found out about me. My name, my routine, my home. My throat closed as terror washed over me. Emily whispered, I begged Tom to tell you. I told him you deserved to know. He said he would. He promised. Her voice broke. But he never did, and now everything is out of control. My hands trembled so violently, I had to sit down again. Then she looked me in the eyes, expression full of regret. I didn't want to be part of your life. I didn't want to destroy your marriage. I only wanted to survive. But now you deserve the truth. Before I could respond, her phone buzzed. She froze. Her entire body stiffened. She turned the phone around so I could see the notification. A message from a number saved only as unknown. It said, "I saw you with her. Move again and you both die." My blood went cold. Emily whispered, "He knows who you are." At that exact moment, someone knocked, slowly, heavily, on her front door. We both stared at the door, neither of us breathing. Then a man's voice spoke calmly from outside. "Emily, open the door." The voice wasn't familiar, not Tom. Not a neighbor. Someone else. Someone who shouldn't know where she lived. Someone who shouldn't know I was there. My pulse pounded so loudly, I couldn't hear my own thoughts. Emily grabbed my arm. "Don't make a sound." The knocking continued. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Then the voice again, this time clearer, colder, and far too certain. "I know she's in there with you." I felt my heart stop. He meant me. The knocks didn't sound impatient. They sounded confident. Like whoever was outside knew he didn't need permission to come in. Emily's grip on my arm tightened until her nails dug into my skin. Her eyes were wide, not with fear, but with a kind of hopeless recognition. "That's him," she whispered. My stomach twisted violently. The man knocked once more, gentle, deliberate. "Emily, I've waited long enough." I felt my breath catch. The room felt too small, too silent, too exposed. Emily motioned for me to follow her. She led me toward a small hallway off the living room, into a cramped storage space barely big enough for 2 people. She closed the door softly, then locked it. The lock was flimsy. One push from a strong hand would break it, but it was all we had. In the dark, I could hear her breathing fast and shallow. I wasn't doing much better. The man tried the front door. The metal handle rattled. Then stopped. A moment of silence passed. Then footsteps moved slowly inside the house. Inside. He was already inside. My blood froze. Emily clamped a shaking hand over her mouth as the footsteps approached the hallway. For a second, everything went still. Then the storage room door handle moved. Once. Twice. Testing. I swallowed a scream. Emily whispered so quietly I barely heard her, "Don't move, don't breathe." The man let go of the handle, but he didn't walk away. He stood there, listening. My lungs burned from holding air. Then the worst sound echoed through the hallway. A soft laugh. Not loud. Not mocking. Just cruel. A voice too calm for the situation said, "Emily, you never were good at hiding." My heart hammered so hard I thought he'd hear it. He tapped the door with his knuckles, slow, deliberate taps. "Do you want to open it?" he asked, "or should I?" I felt Emily trembling beside me, shaking like her body might fall apart. Then his tone sharpened. "You know, I don't like being kept waiting." Suddenly, footsteps retreated. I exhaled shakily, thinking he'd left. But then I heard the front door open. And close. Silence. Emily collapsed against the wall, tears spilling down her face. "He'll come back, he's testing us. He always tests first." I didn't understand the level of danger until that moment. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't metaphorical fear. This was a man willing to break into a house in broad daylight without hesitation. I grabbed her shoulders. "Emily, we need to call the police." She shook her head violently. "No, last time I did, he followed the responding officer home. His wife left him. The police told me to stop making calls because it made things worse. He has people everywhere." I felt sick. I whispered, "Then we need to call Tom, now." Her eyes flinched. "That's the part you don't know." A sharp panic ran through me. "What do you mean?" She wiped her face, inhaled shakily, and said, "Tom already knows he's here." My breath caught. He's been trying to stop him quietly for months. Every late night, every sudden trip, every strange call, he wasn't hiding from you. He was trying to keep him away from us. He thought if he handled it alone, he could protect both of us. I felt something twist painfully inside me. Hurt, betrayal, understanding, rage. All at once. Then why didn't he tell me? I whispered. Because the man at the door threatened your life first, she said. He told Tom that if he ever warned you, you would be the first person he came after. Before I could fully process that, Emily's phone buzzed again. One message. From unknown. I'm not done. We both jerked at the sound of a car pulling up outside. For a moment, I thought it was him again. But then I heard a familiar voice calling my name. Tom. I scrambled out of the storage room and ran to the window. Tom was outside, scanning the yard like he already expected something horrifying. His face looked pale, tense, desperate. When he saw me through the window, relief crashed over his features, until he noticed Emily behind me. Then his expression shifted to fear. He motioned urgently. Both of you come out now. My hands shook as I unlocked the front door and rushed toward him. Emily followed more slowly, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting shadows to solidify into the man himself. The moment Tom reached me, he grabbed my hands. You shouldn't be here. I told her to keep her distance from you. His voice cracked, not in anger but in panic. I pulled back, hurt stinging sharper than fear. Tom, why didn't you tell me any of this? He looked at me with eyes full of exhaustion and guilt. Because I didn't want you living like her, hiding, checking windows at night, sleeping with lights on, jumping every time a car drove by. I didn't want you to lose peace because of my past. Emily flinched, her face twisting. He's back, Tom. He was inside my house. I can't keep running like this. Tom ran a hand over his face. I know. He contacted me too. He said if I didn't show up today, he'd come for both of you. My heart plummeted. I whispered, show up where? Tom swallowed hard. Here. Before any of us could react, a voice echoed from the street. Good, you're all together. We turned slowly. The man stood at the edge of the driveway. Tall, calm, expressionless. Not wild. Not chaotic. Scarier, controlled. Emily staggered backward. Tom stepped in front of both of us, jaw tightening. The man smiled faintly. I've waited a long time for this. Tom clenched his fists. You're not touching them. Oh, I won't, the man replied. Not if you give me what I want. His eyes shifted to me, and the way he looked at me made my skin crawl. I whispered, what do you want? The man smirked slowly. Your husband knows. Tom stiffened, muscles tensing. He knew exactly what the man meant. He whispered to me without turning his head. Get behind me, no matter what happens. I obeyed, terror rattling through every bone. The man took one deliberate step forward. Tom, he said softly, I want the files. Emily gasped. My chest tightened. Files? What files? Tom exhaled shakily. They're gone. The man tilted his head like someone studying an insect. Then your wife will pay for your mistake. He took another step. Emily screamed. Tom moved. I froze. And the man reached into his coat. But before he could pull anything out, tires screeched loudly behind him. A black SUV swung sharply into the street. Doors flew open. 4 men jumped out. Not with guns. Not with badges. But with a familiar emblem on their jackets. Security. Private. High level. Expensive. And recognizable. Because it was the same emblem Tom once said belonged to a company he used to work for. Except, he never told me what that company actually did. The men surrounded the stranger in seconds. He didn't fight. He didn't resist. He only smiled at Tom. "I told you this wasn't over." The security team restrained him and shoved him into the SUV. One of the men looked at Tom and said quietly, "We'll take it from here." Then they were gone. The SUV sped off, disappearing down the street. Silence fell like a heavy weight. Emily collapsed onto the driveway, sobbing into her hands. My knees nearly buckled beneath me. Tom exhaled a shaking breath, finally breaking. I looked at him, chest tightening. "Tom," I whispered, "what files was he talking about? What did you hide from me?" Tom closed his eyes. And when he opened them, I saw a truth I wasn't ready for. "I didn't just lose Emily years ago," he said quietly. "I didn't just fail her." He swallowed hard. "I used to work for the man who wants her dead." The words hung in the air like a slow, heavy drop of poison. Emily's breath hitched. I felt my stomach twist until it hurt. Tom didn't look at either of us at first. He stared at the ground, jaw tense, shoulders collapsing under the weight of a truth he never wanted to speak. I stepped closer, my voice barely steady. "What do you mean you worked for him?" Tom finally looked up, and there was shame in his eyes, deep and carved in. "I wasn't always the man you know," he began. "I used to work for a private intelligence firm, the same firm those men in the SUV came from. I told you it was security, but that was the clean version. In reality, we handled things for people who paid enough to make problems disappear." Emily's face paled. "He wasn't just a client," she whispered. "He was your boss." Tom nodded painfully. "For years, he ran everything from blackmail to offshore laundering to political entrapment. I knew it was wrong. I knew he was dangerous. But I stayed because I thought I could make it through a few years, take the money and leave." He laughed bitter, broken. "No one just leaves him." Emily wrapped her arms around herself. "That's why he came after me." Tom swallowed hard. "You weren't supposed to get involved. You were just my sister who lived halfway across the state. But you overheard something you weren't meant to hear, and instead of doing what most people would have done, you recorded it." Emily looked away, guilt tightening her shoulders. "I thought it would save people," she whispered. "I thought turning in those recordings would stop him." Tom nodded grimly. "They were the files he wants, the ones he's been hunting for years. Evidence of everything, the money, the names, the threats. If they ever reached the wrong hands, he'd lose everything." I looked between them, the puzzle pieces crashing together in my mind like broken glass. "So Emily ran," I said. Tom nodded. "And you helped her disappear." "I tried," he said, "but I didn't know she'd contact you. I didn't know she'd end up in your life. If he had figured that out." "He did," Emily whispered. "He knew I cared about her." The realization struck me like a punch. "That's why he watched me." Emily nodded shakily. "He didn't want me. He wanted leverage. You were the only weakness he found." A cold wave washed through me. My hands trembled. So all those times I thought someone was stalking me, it was because of this. Tom's face broke completely. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't tell you because the moment you knew the truth, you became part of it. I thought keeping you in the dark would keep you alive." Tears filled my eyes, not from fear, but from the devastating clarity of everything I didn't know about the man I loved. "What happens now?" I whispered. Tom took a deep breath. "The men who grabbed him, they're not doing it to help us. They're doing it for him. They're bringing him back to the boss." Emily shook her head violently. "Then we're still not safe." "No," Tom agreed, voice low, "but we have something he doesn't know." "What?" I whispered. Tom looked at Emily. She reached slowly into her jacket, and pulled out a small, battered USB drive. I stared. "The files," I breathed. Emily nodded. "The originals were destroyed when my apartment burned," she said quietly. "But I made a duplicate years before, a hidden one. It's everything, every recording, every transfer, every crime, enough to bury him and everyone he works with." Tom staggered back. You never told me you kept it." "I didn't trust anyone," she said softly, "not even you." Tom let out a shaky exhale. "If we hand that over to the wrong agency, it will disappear," he warned. "If we hand it to the police, half of them work for him. If we leak it online without protection, he'll retaliate before it spreads." I asked, "So what do we do?" Tom looked at me, and for the first time since all this began, I saw resolve. "We go to the only organization powerful enough to take him down." "Your old company?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, the people he can't buy. The international bureau that fired him, investigated him, and has been trying to catch him for years." He turned to Emily. "It's time to stop running." Emily hesitated, years of fear clashing with a sudden spark of freedom. Then she nodded. "Okay," she whispered, "let's finish this." Tom squeezed my hand, voice trembling with both fear and hope. "No more secrets," he said softly, "not ever again." I nodded, tears streaming. "No more running." Emily slipped the USB into Tom's hand. And with that single motion, the entire story, every chase, every threat, every sleepless night shifted from survival to justice. The USB drive felt heavy in Tom's hand, but it wasn't just a piece of plastic. It was years of fear, lies, and lives at stake, finally in the right hands. Emily took a deep breath. "Are we ready?" she asked. Her voice was shaky, but there was determination now, the first real spark of hope I had seen in years. Tom nodded. "We have no choice. He won't stop until he's caught, but this can end it." I looked at both of them and realized something profound. Despite all the deception, fear, and danger, we had survived. Together. The three of us left the house cautiously, stepping into the cool night. Tom's car waited, engine humming quietly like a promise. On the way to the bureau, silence filled the car. Not the uncomfortable kind, but a shared, heavy understanding. Every glance we exchanged said the same thing. Nothing would ever be the same, but we would face it as one. Arriving at the bureau was surreal. Cold fluorescent lights, guarded entrances, serious faces. But here, the power belonged to people who couldn't be bought or intimidated. Tom handed over the USB, explaining everything, the crimes, the threat, the man who had haunted our lives for years. Emily watched nervously, biting her lip. I took her hand. "You did the right thing," I whispered. "We're finally safe." Her eyes glistened. I never thought I'd see the day. Within hours, the bureau acted. They moved with precision, efficiency, tracking down the man who had terrorized Emily and orchestrated the break-ins, threats, and lies. It wasn't a movie chase. It was meticulous, professional, inevitable. And finally, justice. The man was arrested. The files we carried proved every crime. No bribes, no escape. He was gone from our lives forever. Weeks later, the air felt lighter. The constant tension, the fear that had shadowed every day was gone. Tom and I sat on the porch of our home. Emily was visiting less secretly now, laughing softly as she told stories of her long-hidden life. "I still can't believe it's over," she said. "All those years of running, hiding for nothing in the end." Tom took my hand, fingers intertwining with mine. "No, not for nothing. Everything we went through, it taught us what matters: truth, trust, family, love." I leaned on him, letting the weight of months, maybe years, of fear and doubt fall away. "We're finally free," I whispered. Emily smiled at us, the first genuine smile I had seen in a long time. "And finally I can live too, without fear, without running." As the sun set behind the trees, painting the sky with streaks of gold and crimson, I realized something I had never truly understood until that day. Life doesn't always protect the innocent. Danger doesn't always disappear quietly. But courage, honesty, and the people who stand by you can turn even the darkest fear into light. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. Because sometimes, surviving together isn't just about escaping danger. It's about facing it, ending it, and finally reclaiming your life.